Hello. In this video, I'm going to walk through setting up a discussion forum in Brightspace pretty much completely from scratch. So I'm in an empty course right now. Well, not completely empty, but a class that doesn't have any discussion set up in it yet. Before we even go into the discussion tool, I'm going to strongly encourage you to do two things first. The first one is to set up grade items for your discussions before you start making the discussion forum. It's going to save you time later. The second thing I'm going to recommend is that we use a discussion grading rubric, which is also going to save you tons of time later when it comes to grading your student discussions. Because student discussions can be really helpful for kind of maintaining that social presence in an online class, but unless you have a good system for grading, it could get overwhelming. So that's why we want to start with a rubric. So first, let's look in the gradebook. In this class, I already have grade items set up. You need to have one grade item for each discussion topic. In this class, they're weekly. So every week there's a different discussion. So there's a different grade item for each week. So that's all set up. In other videos, we've shown you how to set up a gradebook. If you're still unsure about any of this stuff, contact Jason or I. So for now, the gradebook is set up here. The second thing we want to look at is Rubric. So we're going to go to Progress and Rubrics. And I could make a brand new rubric for myself, and we've also done videos and handouts about rubrics in the past. But just to make our lives a little bit easier, I've made a generic discussion assessment rubric, and this should already be visible in all of your courses. This little icon here means it's been shared from kind of the mothership unit of our Brightspace system. So if we look at this rubric, it's kind of a really basic rubric with just three criteria. Content, did they do the readings? Are they addressing the discussion prompts that you're giving them? Participation, are they posting by the assigned deadline? Are they replying to their peers? Writing quality. Is the grammar, spelling, punctuation pretty clear, or is it full of errors and causing confusion? That's basically it. That's the entire rubric. If we wanted to, we could copy this and kind of make any changes we wanted. If there's anything you wanted to add or change or remove or change the point values, you can do that. But for now, we're just going to stick with this basic generic one. Because again, in this current circumstances, we're not trying to make it perfect. We're just trying to get it done for now. So we have grade items created and we have a rubric ready to go. So now we're going to go to activities and discussions. And right now it's empty. Now here's a tricky thing about discussions in Brightspace that often trips people up. If I go to new, it gives me two options, forums and topics. And it's not intuitive what those two things mean. But essentially the forum is sort of the room, well, how do we want to say that? The forum is like the shell that all of the discussion topics are inside of. In most courses, you're just going to create a single forum, and then inside that forum you're going to have your weekly topics or your chapter topics or whatever, however your topics are organized. Sometimes people get themselves in trouble and they try to make a new forum for each week. That's not how it's intended to be used, and it causes a lot of confusion, makes it really hard to organize. So we are going to make a new forum, and we're just going to call it weekly discussions. That's it. We're not going to do anything else with this. We're not going to change anything to restrictions because we want this to always be open, always be visible. Okay, so now we have a forum just called weekly discussions. Inside of this, now we're going to make a new topic. When we make a topic, we choose which form it's going to go in. So again, it's going to go into weekly discussions. This first one, we're just going to call it week 1 discussion. And the description, this is where you're going to be putting your instructions to students. So for this one, let's just say it's going to be like your introduction. Obviously, in a real class, you're going to want more guidance than this. Usually you want to ask your students specific questions in the discussion prompt that they are supposed to be responding to. There's a few other settings in here that usually we don't really want to mess with. You could set this up so that all the posts are anonymous, but that's a different situation that we probably don't want to get into right now. You can also set it so that a moderator has to approve individual posts before they appear. So the students would write their posts, they hit submit, and you as the instructor would have to approve them. Usually we don't want to do that. It takes way too much work on your part and it's not really necessary. But this third option is one you probably do want to check off. Users must start a thread before they can read or reply to other threads. The reason we want that to be checked off is oftentimes in discussion posts, the first student to get in here, usually one of the really good students, is going to make their discussion post, hit submit, and then other students are going to wait to see what they've written and then kind of copy, not necessarily copy, but just follow that person's lead. And that often leads to really generic, homogeneous discussions. I think usually it's better to have the students do their own writing before they can see what everybody else has written. But that's up to you. That's everything under properties. Then we're going to go to restrictions. You can hide it from users, so it's in draft mode if you're still working on this. Now, here is another thing that's kind of tricky about the discussion forums. There's two sets of dates. There's the availability dates and there's the locking dates. So the locking dates basically mean, are the discussions visible to students at all, or are they completely hidden and locked down? If you locked and unlocked it, it means that after the end date for locking, it's not visible to students at all. They can't even go back and look at it. So usually I suggest you keep it unlocked and you just use the start date and end date. So start date is the first day they can start posting. Let's just call that Monday. The end date is the last date that they can make a post in this discussion. Let's call that Sunday night at 11:30. And then we always want to check off display and calendar anywhere in Brightspace because students rely on that to know what they're doing and making sure they're not missing anything. There's also a section for release conditions and groups, but we're not going to worry about that right now. The next tab is the assessment tab. So here is where we attach a grade item. We already have grade items created, so this is easy. We just go in here and attach it to the week 1 discussion. You have to give it a score. In this particular class, I had them set so that each weekly discussion is worth 9 points. So that's just what I'm going to use. You can use whatever grading scheme that you want. The second thing we're going to do is add a rubric. And again, we're just going to use this kind of generic discussion rubric that's already in here. We're just going to select that. And then we don't really want to mess with this because we're not assessing individual posts, we're assessing students and everything that they posted. And that'll make sense in a minute. And we don't have to worry about anything in objectives, so we're going to hit save and close. And now this discussion forum is, or this discussion topic is ready to go for students. So the next thing I'm going to show you is what this looks like after a student has made a post, how you assess it, and then what the student sees. So now we're back in the discussion, or we're back in the course homepage, and a student has posted now. We can see over here we have an unread discussion post. So we're going to go back into discussions. We're going to see that one student has started a thread and one post has been created. So in the middle of the week, when you're still kind of reading what students are doing, you just kind of click on the discussion and look at what students have posted. So I can see here that Frodo has made a discussion post. I can see what he's written, and if I wanted to, I can reply to them. And it's a good idea to jump into the discussion sometimes as the instructor. You're probably not going to have time to reply to every single student every single week, but I think it is important to occasionally get involved in here, ask some clarifying questions, kind of encourage the students that made a really insightful post, or ask a student who maybe needs to add some more detail, ask them to expand on that. So I'm just going to make a reply on here. But let's say we're done with the week. Let's say it's Monday morning after week 1 is over and it's time to start grading these students. So if we go back into, let's just do this, go back to the discussion list. If we hadn't added the gradebook and hadn't added a rubric, it would be a lot of work to grade all these discussion posts, especially if you have 20, 25 students in the class. That's 25 threads plus replies. That could be 100 posts or more. But because we set up the grades and the rubric, this is going to be much more manageable. So this is what it looks like. When we're in the discussion tool and we see our list of weekly discussions, we click on the little arrow next to the weekly discussion and we go to Assess Topic. Now it's going to show us a list of all of the students in this class. And right now we just have Frodo, and it says he's not yet evaluated. So if we click on Topic Score, it's going to pop up a window and it's going to show us a couple of things. The first thing we're going to see is the student's name, their score currently, the rubric that we attached, and if we scroll down, we'll see everything that they posted, including all of the replies that they've made to their peers. So if you have a requirement in your discussion to, say, reply to 2 of your classmates this week, then I'm going to see everything this student posted and every reply that he posted all in one place. So I can see if he has met those objectives or not. I can read everything he's done all in one place. So I don't have to click through every single discussion trying to find Frodo's replies. It's all here. Now, because we have this rubric in here, to grade this, it's really simple. We just look at each criteria and we check off what the student earned for that criteria. And as we do it, it automatically gives them a score. It automatically turns that into a grade. That's all we have to do. We can adjust this and it adjusts the grade. Then if we scroll down here, we have a space to give them general feedback. And we hit publish. And that's it. You graded the student, you're done. If you have a ton of work to get through, you might not have time to give a lot of written feedback for each student. But by using that rubric, you are giving them feedback. Because now I will show you what it looks like from the student point of view. So now we're looking at this class from the point of view of Frodo, a student. And when the student gets in here, they're going to go into grades. And Frodo can see his grade. He has a grade for weekly discussion, his point value, his percentage, any written feedback that I've given him. But even if I didn't have time to give him a lot of written feedback, he can also see this rubric. So if the student clicks on this, then they get to see how they were scored on the rubric. So even though I may not have had time to give him a lot of written specific feedback, the student can see how he earned the grade. Now, if you had time and you wanted to make a more detailed rubric with more criteria and more levels and more descriptive cells, then you could do that and you'd be able to give them even more specific, actionable feedback without a lot of work on your part. So that's pretty much it. That's the discussion tool in a nutshell. That should have shown you how to set it up from scratch, how to grade student discussions, and what it looks like from the student point of view after you've graded it. In the future, we'll have other posts and topics and videos about kind of getting the most out of online discussions, increasing social presence, connecting with your students on a more productive level. So thank you for watching. Hopefully this was helpful.